Episode 114 of Strange Brow Radio. Hello, patrons. This is a special broadcast brought to you by Strange Brow Radio. You know my name, Tobe Johnson, and here we go again. Great witnesses, strange stories. That's what you want. That's what I'm going to bring you. And we can't do it without Feral by Aaron over at Etsy, ERYN, Alchemy Sound Tools, and the folks over at Metallic Monsters, metallicmonsters.com, where you can get all of your 3D printed monsters for everything from game role-playing to collection. We even did our own over there. You know all that. Check out Metallic Monsters and Feral by Aaron. Now, if you can't tell by the sound of my voice, I can hear it. I'm a little stuffed up. So imagine a box of Kleenex here and some Robitussin, and you'll have a good idea of my situation. But enough about me. Let's talk about our witnesses. We'll be right back. Hello, Strange Brow Radio patrons. As I said, more on our guest here in a second, but before I get there, as I wrote recently over at the Patreon page, wrote out a little summary of what's going on with the show. I think I did mention, I wasn't beating around the bush, that we're in the process of getting out of Dodge, moving the studio, and getting to higher ground, let's put it that way, where more things are possible. And until that day comes, there's a lot of spinning plates going on. And I'm not going to get into all the minutia, but you can imagine, besides moving, what else may be going on here. Production-wise, it's going to be a little bit cumbersome to try to pull off the show as I've been doing. So there is an intermission that's happening as of now. The general audience doesn't really know that. Only you do. And for that, we're going to pause the show intermission-wise until February or March expected time frame and start things up with in a new place with new opportunities and go from there. So I hope you stick with me here at Patreon, and I think you will. It's been good having you on board. But remember, you can check out the channel and come and go as you please and come back and forth. For those who have been here since the get-go, I truly appreciate it. I also want to thank our fantastic winner of the Al Moon Lab book review, Christina Leaf, who is the grand winner. I did a live pull of the hat regarding that. Would have been a couple weeks back now. On whoever wrote a review on Amazon was entered in the contest. It was a lady by the name of Christina Leaf, so she'll get a Strange Brow Radio shirt and bumper sticker sent her way. Remember, you can check out all of our merch over at the Strange Brow Radio merch area. The gear area, just go to strangebrowradio.com and check that out. Also, what else am I forgetting here? I think that's it. Well, let's get to our interview. As I said, this is a part one of a two-part series here with our witnesses. And in short, we're talking Bigfoot and strangeness following you home. This is down in Oregon, in an area I'm familiar with these people, in fact, and they are largely anonymous. I don't think there's any escaping that. I think we do mention maybe a name of one of the daughters involved, but other than that, anonymous witnesses here. No video to boot, but there are some videos that I am editing together, and I will send those your way. So thanks for sticking with me. You're listening, of course, to Strange Brow Radio episode number 114 and our part one series here with our anonymous husband and wife. Here we go. With me now is an anonymous witness from Oregon, someone who I've worked with before in the past, and I know a little bit of their story. In fact, this witness was with me really when what was known as Bigfoot and Beer started in the little town of Leeburg in Oregon. I'm not quite sure, actually, if Strange Brow Radio would even be here if it weren't for this witness and his keen ear of the proprietor of the pizza restaurant that he worked at. So, anonymous witness in Oregon, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Toby?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, so I told the people a little bit about you here in the preamble before you actually hopped on the line with me, but let's go back even farther here to the time where you had an inkling that the supernatural was even possible or that there was something else going on besides the physical world, because I've only got dribs and drabs of it. But tell people where you grew up and what your experience was.
I grew up in a small town called Tahunga, north of Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
And I guess the first experience I had was probably as a child. I thought there were ghosts in the house, but that's little kid stuff. You always think a house is haunted or something when you're a little kid. I remember there's
But
gunshots
hold on a
outside.
second here. There's a problem here with my computer. Hold on a second, John. Is that gunshots in the background?
Yeah, somebody's shooting outside.
I love it. That's awesome. Oh shoot! I wish we could have kept that in there. Well, maybe they'll shoot. Maybe it's a homicide. Maybe they'll shoot
It's
again. Maybe they missed. Probably it could be a cougar. All right, let's start again here. I'm going to introduce you again here because something's wrong with the audio here. So 3, 2, 1. On the phone with me now is the husband of the two anonymous witnesses that will be speaking with on and off here for the evening. So, anonymous witness, I gave the audience a little bit of a preamble on your history and your wife's history and the latest updates and the goings on that are happening in Oregon. But just to reiterate and mention again, without meeting this witness in particular, the husband here, Strange Bow Radio probably wouldn't exist, not in the format that it is today, and the live events, which hopefully we start up again soon. But it's good to touch bases with you again down in Oregon. Hopefully we can get your wife to join you on and off here in the evening, because I know that somehow she's connected to half of these stories that we're going to tell here. But refresh my mind here a little bit about where you grew up and what your first inkling of the supernatural is, and then we'll jump forward to the more recent events. But where'd you grow up, and what was your first inkling that strange things can happen?
Well, I grew up in a town north of Los Angeles, California called Tahunga. And my first inclination of supernatural things, besides the obvious things that happen to, children, something on your bed or, bumping the things that go bump in the night. The first thing that appeared to be supernatural beyond a shadow of a doubt was when me and a friend of mine experienced missing time. We went into a room, his game room in the back of his parents' house, and it was about 7 o'clock, and we were going to go get beer, and play Axis and Allies. That was the plan for the night.
That's a
But
solid
first we were
plan.
going to go get...
That's a real solid plan. I like it.
Yeah. That's just something we used to play games, board games and stuff like
Yeah.
that on the weekends. But anyhow, we stepped outside after what was only about an hour or two, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. So about 7 hours had passed in less than an hour or two. And apparently during that time, one of our friends who was coming over to meet us and his mom came into the back room looking for us. And to them, we weren't there, but we had never left the room. She asked us where we were in the morning, just like we never left that room. But when realized it was actually 2 o'clock in the morning because we were in total denial. We searched the house and everybody was passed out and all the clocks said 2 a.m. except the one in the room that we were in that still said 9 by the time we were done searching, and my watch said 9. Then I don't know,
And so at no
tripped
point
out.
while you guys were, yeah, no point while you guys were hanging out. And how old again did you say you were?
Probably, 21. At least we were going to get beer.
Right.
I mean, we
right. Well,
got off work. I went over to his house to set the board up, and then we were going to go get beer. I mean, that was it. And we didn't even fully set up the board. I mean, we just got there and get stuff ready. Stepped outside the room, and 7 hours went by, just like that. I mean, instantly.
Right. And so for the skeptic to say, well, maybe you just got lost in an intriguing game and had a few too many, what do you tell them?
Well, the clock and the watch on my hand agreed.
Right.
And the strange thing, in the morning, the clock in the game room was reset back to normal time, but not the one on my hand. My watch wasn't. Then about 2 weeks later, it stopped working altogether. I never changed the time on it.
So at any time before that, did you have any experiences that seemed out of the ordinary? Did your parents have anything like missing time or any experiences out of the ordinary before that event?
No. Nothing I can think of.
Okay. All right. What was the next thing that happened?
I would say that's probably when we moved to Bakersfield. Well, I saw a UFO over my house. That was probably 2 years later. And I didn't know it was a UFO. I was on the phone talking to one of my friends, and I happened to be looking up in the sky. I was at the kitchen window, and I noticed that I couldn't see any stars in one area, and it was huge. There was a huge area blacked out. It was just like a big black mass blocking out the stars. And at the time, I didn't think UFO for hours. I didn't even think that. I was like, is that the hole in the ozone layer? What am I seeing here? And it was directly above my house. It was probably the size of, I'd say, a super Walmart and its parking lot. It was huge.
And what shape did it? Did it have a shape?
It was oval.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it was perfectly round because I couldn't clearly see the edges, but it was like an oval mass blocking out all the stars. All the way around.
Mm-hmm. And you're the only one that's... Your friend saw it with you?
Oh, yeah, he could see it from his house. He lived about 2 or 3 miles away. I told him, dude, look in the sky above my house. Tell me what you see. And he's like, dude, what is that? And
did it move, or did you... When did you lose track of it?
It wasn't moving very fast. It was moving slow. It drifted away after probably about 5 or 10 minutes. It was there for a while.
And did it drift across? Did it drift up? How did it move?
It was going from west to east, heading over the mountains.
So it just kind of slid across the sky horizontally.
Yeah, it was just, there was not a sound, totally quiet, no sound whatsoever. But it didn't look like it was going very fast at all. I'd say maybe 20 miles an hour at the most, just slowly cruising over.
But was it hovering in a specific spot over your house for a period of time?
Well, Toby, when I say over my house, it was over the whole neighborhood,
Right. But was it pinpointed to one area?
I was looking straight up.
Right.
Looking at it.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't looking off to the left or to the right. I didn't
Right.
notice it until it was right above me. I just went
Gotcha.
outside talking on the phone and was like, what the?
Interesting.
Just
And
happened
so
to see it.
and so the stars would black out as it slid across the sky. Could you see the stars winking out as it moved across?
Oh, yeah, you'd see a star, and then the star would do. You could see it was there blacking out all the stars. Once it had gone, you could see all the stars again. So
And no tail lights, no signage on
no
it,
lights
nothing.
whatsoever. No blinking light, no aircraft lights, no warning lights, no kind of lights whatsoever.
Were you near any kind of military installation at that time?
There is Edwards off in Palmdale, which is probably about 30 or 40 miles away. And this
Gotcha.
thing could have been heading in that direction, too.
Right. So
You know, Edward-
and you're about 23 years old, you're saying at that time?
Yeah, about 23 or 24.
And so what happens after that sighting? Do you tell anybody? Do you keep it yourself?
I didn't, just me and my friend talked about it, and that was about it. And never talked about it again. I don't even know if he remembers it.
You didn't even mention it to your father, because I know a little bit about your father, and I want to talk about that too. But your father had some connection to the military, correct?
Well, he was in the Army after World War II. He was in the Army of Occupation, and this is my stepfather we're talking about, my brother's dad. My real dad had died when I was young. In the Army of Occupation in Japan after World War II. And after he got out of the Army, him and my mom met, and he worked at, I think he worked at Lockheed first and then went to Rockwell, which was Rockwell International, Rocketdyne at the time, and then it went to Rockwell International, and now it's Boeing. He worked several places. He worked at a place, it was on DeSoto. I'm not sure exactly what they did there. I know he worked at the box shop. The box shop was a place where they built boxes for their equipment and stuff like that. And then he moved to Santa Susana, and they were shutting that. That's where the reactor is above Simi Valley, and they tested space shuttle engines and stuff up there.
So you weren't quite sure what he did, but at some point, he had
He did all kinds of stuff there.
Right. Did he have a top secret clearance?
I'm sure he had to, yeah.
Yeah. So he worked on some interesting
there.
stuff. And at what point?
When we were kids at the company picnic, I got to run around on a B-1 bomber. So, and that's before they even went to the Air Force.
You got to do what now?
To run around on a B-1 bomber.
What do you mean run around? I thought you said that. What do you mean?
Yeah, they had a company picnic out in Chatsworth at Rocketdyne, and there was a B-1 there because it was I guess Rocketdyne or Boeing at the time. They were the ones that built the B-1 bomber, the original in the 70s, late 70s, maybe early 80s, and it was at the company picnic. This might have been the original prototype or a mock-up or something like that, but all the kids got to run around on it.
So wait, you're out on the tarmac.
No, it was not a tarmac.
Where was this?
It was like they had a privately owned park out there. It was on one of their facilities.
And is the
how
B1?
It got there, I don't know. I don't know how they moved this massive thing, whether it was built there for testing or what.
Yeah, so you say you get to run around on it. Are you running up and down underneath it? Where are you running?
I remember going inside it.
That's incredible. Okay. Now let's go
I don't remember too much. I was so young and it was so long ago, but I remember going inside it and
There's probably some photograph somewhere, right?
I don't know. know that my dad carried a camera. I remember his boss was in a boxing match. It was a company. It was a lot of fun at the company picnics back then. Everybody was more interested in catching frogs and sending up into the air on helium balloons, as far as the kids were concerned.
I love this. That's so good. Peter's having a total heart attack right now. Oh my goodness. Frogs falling from the sky. It's like prophecy talking to you. Wow, okay. That's awesome. The things we used to do to Kermit. I've got a few memories myself.
It was a different time, Toby. Come on. You remember back in the 70s and 80s, don't you? It was.
Right.
Frogs really, but yeah.
Frogs and M80s. What a combo.
We didn't do that. We never really gave
I
much
didn't either.
thought. I think I gave a little thought. What happens to the frog?
I know. They're sweet. Do they really give you warts, though? That's the question.
No, they weren't toads. They were frogs. But yeah, that was a question.
I want to ask you about more about your dad here. Let's inform the folks about the chapter of the story where your dad is called in to take a look at some mummified remains. How old were you when that happened and when you heard the story? Roughly around the same time, or what?
Well, it was in the newspapers, so if any of your listeners want to look it up, it should be fairly easy to research. King Tut's mummy came to one of the museums in Los Angeles, and they took it to my dad's facility to have it x-rayed. And I'm not sure if it was Air Force or NASA, because he mostly worked for a space agency, or was loosely connected to NASA at the time because they were Rocketdyne. And he was the person that they volunteered to handle King Tut's mummy while they x-rayed it. And he moved it around and rotated and stuff like that. And he didn't talk too much about it. I don't know how he was dressed. I remember him saying him saying that he wore a lead curtain, but I don't know if he was in some kind of hazmat suit or not. I didn't ask too much about it. I just remember reading about it in the papers, and then I happened to go to his work that day because I was going to his house because I lived with my mom, and I would go visit him on the weekends. And I happened to be there that day that he had been working on the mummy.
All right, so Dad gets home from work, and what does he tell you he sees?
He told me that he didn't think it was human. And then he started asking me if I thought aliens were demons or not, or something like that. And I'm like, oh, geez, Dad, you're trying to ruin UFOs now. Come on, Because I was still a little kid, and I didn't want to hear the church thing already,
Right.
That's what I was thinking. But he told me, this is what he told me, and I heard other people at work say it too, that after he had handled the mummy they were working with it all day, I think, and that he had a lot of strange experiences being around equipment, and mostly he told me is about vending machines. Is he would be able to go up to the vending machine, and he wouldn't have to put money in it or anything, and it would give him what he wanted. And it was more than one vending machine. One gave him, candy or something like that, and then he got coffee from another. And then I remember my two experiences is when he came up to meet me outside the gate, the gate just opened up and automatically let him out. And the gate, it's a secure facility. There was a security guard that you had to be buzzed out, and the gate just let him out, and the guy was like, what's going on here? My dad's, don't worry about it. It's been going on all day. And our tradition after that was we would go to a restaurant and then head back over the hill, which is Santa Susana Pass, or into Simi Valley, because that's where he lived. And we stopped at the restaurant, and I don't remember what we ate. When we went to the register, the girl that was working the register was going to ring us up. Sorry, my daughter. The registers just started going berserk, opening and closing and stuff. She's like, "Oh my God, I don't know what's going on here." And he's, "Oh, don't worry, that's been going on all day." And as a kid, I didn't really pay any attention to it at the time. I just figured broken register, you know.
So this is well before your missing time.
Oh, yes, this is
Yeah.
got to be at least 10, 11, 12 years before that.
Now, did your dad go into specifics beyond saying it didn't look human of what he actually saw when it was under X-ray?
He didn't go in too much detail, but I do remember him saying something about the head wasn't like a human head. He said it had a big head, and that's about all I really remember about it.
And so directly after that, you start having all these electronic phenomena totally out of the ordinary, things opening at will.
Well, he did.
Things shutting.
Only him. It only did that around him.
But you're witness to it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I saw the security gate and the cash register do that. But that I guess he said that had been happening all day.
Interesting. So did that follow him for the remainder of his life, or what happened years down the road?
I don't remember anything like that happening after that day. Maybe another day after, but nothing that I knew about. Those were the only two incidences that I was aware of.
So no more details from your dad regarding what his job actually was, or anything else strange that he was a part of?
No, that's not the. He wore a radiation badge when he went to work, and one time in Santa Susana, they kept him at work because what?
He sent this earlier. I wanted you to see it. It's the meteorite.
Well, let me introduce who's on the other line here. So in the background is the anonymous witness's wife, and she's taking care of her daughter intermittently. And what are we saying?
Oh, she's showing me pictures of a meteorite.
Oh, so yeah. Well, let's talk about that one after the show. Just to fill the people in on the audience, I had a interview about a week ago with another Sasquatch witness besides you guys. And, you are a Sasquatch witness, and we need to get to that territory as well. But there's some photos here, and I'll tell you more about those later, including the people listening. But so at that point, you're about 23 years old, and at what point do you leave the house and have your... Well, when did you and your wife meet?
Around what, 1999, 2000?
Mm-hmm.
2000.
I graduated high school in 1999.
Okay. And so you guys immediately get married, and do you move in together in Bakersfield?
No, we did get married to what, 5 years later?
We got married in 2004.
4 years later?
Okay. Well, describe the first strange thing that happens after you guys move into Bakersfield together.
The first thing that happened in the first thing was Stimpy acting. Remember when he was hissing in the hallway?
Well, that was in Bakersfield.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah. The first thing to happen in Bakersfield is our cat was walking down the hallway, stopped, looked it up in the air at nothing, started hissing, all its hairs standing up, and took off and ran away. Like it saw something that frightened it. But there was nothing there.
Nothing we could see.
Nothing that we could see.
Right?
No.
Mm-hmm. And never again after either.
Okay.
No.
And so beyond that point there, I'm talking now to your wife. Um, what happens in your life before you guys get married? Are you also having phenomena happening as a teenager, as a little girl, or is it the point you meet your husband?
Well, yeah, I don't really remember anything happening younger. I mean, but yeah, everything really seems to happen after I met him. Uh, yeah, I mean, me and my girlfriend were asleep on the couch, and we saw shadow people in our computer room, and it was like the craziest thing. You know, I mean, there has been stuff about ghosts in my family and such, um, but it's never. I don't know. I think like they don't really want you to talk about it in my family because it creeps people out.
Right. So you did have stuff happen beforehand.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Are you creeped out talking about it?
A little, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's normal, right? And I mean, we haven't even gotten to the really good stuff yet. So you guys get to Bakersfield, and do you feel like the house is haunted? How do things start to unfold?
No, I loved the house. I really did. But after a while, we did fight a lot, and I thought,
Yeah, I thought it was cursed.
I was like, there's something happening here, because we're fighting so much, and we didn't do that before. And
We would have unexplainable spikes in our electric bill to
yeah,
like $1,000 and $700. Like something was just eating up the electricity, and I have no idea what. I mean, I traced down everything. We didn't have any faulty equipment.
no, but we had 4 computers
Yeah,
playing it.
that does not run up an electric bill like that, babe. We've never seen electric bills like that.
No, it was phenomenal. But I mean, like,
Yeah, if you have some missing time and are playing Allies and Access or Access and Allies, maybe your bill would spike up like that. But you're saying that's not happening.
you can't see
No,
my
we
head
were,
shaking.
yeah.
I'm
Right.
shaking my head. No.
Yeah. Well, we used to play a lot of video games. I still play video games.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's okay if you're playing one right now. You can tell.
No, I'm not. We're
Camera.
The witnesses are
our-
playing Candy Crush in between the dumb questions I'm asking. So, what other things are happening at the house besides cats raising their eyebrows? Are you guys seeing anything? Are you sensing anything? Are you hearing knocks?
we are seeing a lot of what you would probably call shadow people. And, we would all be sitting in the couch watching TV. And it was always in one room, the computer room. And the only reason we could see
Well,
it...
that's not Oregon, though.
Yeah, this is
That
still
was
in Bakersfield.
Okay.
So, but he's wanting to know about Oregon.
We had a bank of computers,
Mm-hmm.
4 computers with rows of lights and modems and speakers. So you can see lights all the way across the room, Toby.
So you had an arcade.
The room was...
Right. Yeah.
And you would always see something walk in front of the lights and block them. I mean, a black shape would literally block out the lights. You couldn't see the light through it. It wasn't. That's why it was like something solid.
Mm-hmm. And this
like
is
a person dressed
all
in
hours
black.
all hours a day.
I saw one in the morning once.
Me and Jessica only saw it like twice.
You only saw it twice?
Yeah.
I thought we saw it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Because I
we
used to
saw
see
it
it all
twice.
the time.
It's different. If she saw it twice, I saw it twice. So I guess it's almost like technically 4 times. I don't know.
I used to see it all the time. It seemed like daily to me.
I just remember fighting so much and being so angry at you, and there was like no reason for it. It was. I told him after, I'm like, this house is cursed, it's haunted, something, because we're just fighting so freaking much, and there's no reason for it. There's no. I mean, There was no reason at all to fight about the stuff we were fighting about.
Well, the family that we had bought the house from before were getting a divorce too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a brand new house.
Yeah, and it was a brand new house.
But they, like, demolished all kinds of stuff, so who knows exactly what was there.
And you never got any inkling that the house was haunted from anything they said, or?
No,
When we were buying the houses, my friend, who was annoying, him and his girlfriend
Oh my God.
went with us, and the next morning, we spent the night at a hotel, and the next morning she's like, I had this horrible nightmare. Don't buy the house. In the dream, it was haunted. And that wasn't the same house that we bought, but the front yard was very similar, especially in the game room. But she had told us that she had a dream that we had bought a haunted house. And I didn't think anything about it until years later.
And so previous to this, do you guys have any inkling or interest in the supernatural, the paranormal? Are you,
No.
hanging out with people that are into this? Were you playing Ouija board? Were you doing anything interesting? Or?
I played with a Ouija board when I was in my 20s, years before I ever met my wife.
I was going to say, I played with a Ouija board when I was 13, and that was like...
Yeah. And it was stupid, I was like, boy, this is the most boring game I've ever seen,
Now, was that your experience too, wife?
Well, it was weird. And my girlfriends and I did play with it a lot more.
So it's her.
No, it's me. No, it's you. You were doing it way before me.
I played with the Ouija board once with the...
Well,
Right.
I never had anything bad to say. It was like, oh, you're gonna have a new cat, or
I don't even remember what the questions were asked. I just thought it was just really stupid.
Mine was lame. It was like, oh, are you gonna marry, James, Tammy, whatever. It was like stupid little girl shit and stuff.
My experience with the Ouija board is it kept me from drinking a beer because I had to have both hands on that stupid thing.
Well, now, wait a second. So, all right, I understand it kept you sober for a little while, but you're a young man at that time, too. As far as your wife... As far as your wife's encounters working with a Ouija board, you're saying that it was doing predictive stuff. It was prophetic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it accurate?
No.
No.
Yeah. No. Well, I didn't marry some guy named James. I've been married to my husband since, I've been together with him since I was 19, 21 years.
And his name's not James, but we won't say his name. So it was predictive, but it wasn't accurate.
Right.
Okay. And so that's your experience. You didn't have anything dark happen that you saw happen when you guys were around Ouija boards?
Not at a younger years, no.
Okay. Did you have dark experience with the Ouija board at a different time?
No. One of my friends said that she threw her Ouija board away, and the next day it was back in her closet. But I don't know.
Okay. But that wasn't your experience.
That was not mine, yes.
Okay. So back to Bakersfield. It's probably a country song. When you guys are, seeing these intermittent shadow people, what makes them people in your mind? Are there limbs? Are there heads? Are there torsos? Why are they people?
It's just a tall, upright figure, Actually, one wasn't tall. One was only about 3 foot tall. But the others were, I would say, 5 to 6 foot.
I don't know. They were, like, they had arms.
You saw arms?
Like, well, not arm. I don't know. It was like something stretched out, touching your computer. I mean, it was kind of weird because your computer was in the middle. Jessica's was on the other side. Mine was, and there was something like sitting at your computer with its arms out. I
remember they were always messing with my computer because I saw it in the mornings, like someone was going through my files and stuff.
Yeah. And,
okay.
You know,
So you were seeing what attributes of a human there. When it was, you saw it touching his computer there. How long was that sighting?
I screamed, and then everything was done. So probably like 2 or 3 seconds, kind of a.
Okay.
I got up from the couch and I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm like, what the fuck? Ah! And then, you know, it was gone.
So you get up from the couch, you glance down the hall into this room where the computers are.
Yeah.
And what do you see? What do you see exactly?
A dark shadow. Like, it looks like it's reaching into his computer. I don't know. It was kind of.
That's kind of what I saw too.
Was it leaning over his keyboard and his monitor, like reaching an arm?
The tower.
Yeah, it's like the old school computers, you know, where you got the tower and shit.
Right.
It was a desktop computer.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw too. Like, you know, like a technician messing with your hard drive or something.
Yeah, it's like it was someone sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
Interesting.
Working on the computer. I mean.
Right. I think this episode just wrote itself as Ghost in the Machine for real or something to that effect.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, so it's putting its black ligament, its black arm kind of up to the computer and reaching through it a little bit, and it responds to you screaming?
Well, it vanished. I mean, yeah.
And how did it vanish?
Well, it just was gone.
The one I saw, I was walking into the living room, and I saw blinking in the computer room, you know, all this light, and everything was off the night before. And then I saw my computer screen flashing all my files. They were UFO files, too, because I was looking at, I think, the French Cometa records or something like that, where they had released their UFO documents, and I had downloaded that.
Okay.
And anyhow, I walked in there, and I saw all these different files and stuff, documents, flashing on my screen, you know, then another one, and then another one. And I looked down, and there was a dark figure shape, you know, in front of my computer, like a person knelt down. And it got up to about, and this one wasn't very tall, like I said, maybe 3 feet tall, and it walked right into the wall.
Wow.
It wasn't fast. It didn't seem to be, you know, afraid of me or worried about me or anything. But it's just as soon as I walked in there, because I didn't even see it at first. I was like, what's wrong with my computer? And I looked down and I saw this thing. I was probably standing maybe 5 feet from it.
And at no point did you have any weird computer anomalies or viruses, or was there any sort of damage done after these moments with your hardware, software?
Well, we used to have computer problems all the time, but I don't remember anything immediately after these incidents.
I don't remember anything specific. However, we had a lot of computer issues. I mean, we had to call the Geek Squad.
Well, that's because we were getting new computers all the time, too. Here, babe, pick this up.
Well, can you... Really?
A little bit of intermittent squabbling here over
children.
Lord knows what. Yeah, right. Okay, let's go forward here, and I think we're going forward in time with how you and I met. Just to catch people up, circa 2008 time frame, I walk into a pizza restaurant. I can give up the name, Ike's Pizza in Leesburg, Oregon, and I just crawled out of the woods after looking for Bigfoot pretty much for the second or third time legitimately with a witness, a river guide up that way, who kind of took me under his wing. And he said, the phenomena is much weirder than you think. Um, it turns out he was right. And so we go into this pizza restaurant. I meet you for the first time, and I start reading this article that was related to some sightings from Northern California, that general area, we'll say. And you go on to tell me this incredible story and this videotape that you took. I'm going to let you take it from there, and what brought you into the woods that day.
To the day that we took the videotape?
Yeah.
Well, I used to do a lot of hiking all over Angeles Crest and Sierra Nevada and stuff like that. And after I had gotten married, we were just looking for fun and exciting things to do. And I said, hey, let's just go to the places where they see Bigfoot. And we used to take our friends and we'd drive around to some of the Bigfoot spots where there were sightings and stuff like that. And eventually, I'd say maybe a year or so later, I was looking on the BFRO website. There was a fresh, just happened sighting, maybe a few weeks or a month or so old, not too far from where I lived, about 100 miles away. And that was up in northern Sequoia, I'd say in between. It was a place I think it was Jackass Meadows or something. Something like that. I don't remember.
It can't be Jackass Meadows.
Yes, it was the way. It was something like that. And that was up by Lake Edison. So me and my brother went up there to check it out. And we drove around and looked around, and we didn't see anything except for mountains and stuff. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of boring. This is dead. There's nothing here. But we did bring our camcorder with us. And we went up a week later because I was like, well, next week is no. We went up a week later, and there were 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I said, let's go scout out an area so we can go camping up here because I got some time off for Thanksgiving. So we went up. The idea was to go just the furthest off the route that we could and go camping, and maybe we'd see something out there. And we went up to Huntington Lake and around that and drove around the Kaiser Wilderness. And we came up to a place that I think was Kaiser Creek. And while we were there, there had just been a storm, and the ground was frozen. And I don't think we walked maybe 100 yards away from where we parked, and we started finding footprints frozen into the mud. I mean, you saw the video. I wish we still had it. The small footprints were about 15 inches long and about 6 inches wide, and my whole boot could clearly fit inside it and probably had about 3 or 4 inches to spare. And you could clearly see the big toe. I mean, my brother took some really good stills with his 35 millimeter camera, but I don't know where those are either. But we followed that set of tracks up the mountain for, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 yards. You just follow it. And we lost track of it, but we'd find a print. Some of the tracks were just, muddy tracks on top of the ground because they didn't step through the mud. And you'd find mud on top of leaves and stuff that were still frozen to the ground. And we followed it for a while, and I took video of it. Yeah, it's like, all right, well, we got all we're going to get. Let's head back down. And we turned around to head down, and about maybe 30 feet over from it, there was another track from a different animal, but this one was massive. When I first saw the track, I'm like, I just saw one track at first. And this track was so big, your first reaction when you saw it was like, what did you guys find, an elephant or something? I believe that was your reaction. This track was so big, I couldn't believe that it was actually a Bigfoot-type creature or anything like that. I thought maybe a cow, because there are cows in the area, I think, had just been stomping its foot around, and it had stomped something in the shape of a Bigfoot track, because this track was almost 2 feet long and 10 inches wide. It was huge. But those doubts of it being a cow were immediately erased when about 9 feet away, there was another track, just like it, and then another one, and then another one. And we followed that down the mountain, and I videotaped that until we got to a cutback, which was the part of the video that, was the most impressive, because the cutback was about 8 or 9 feet high, and you could see where this thing had stepped up that in 2 steps. You could see the bottom step of the bottom footprint was at the bottom of the cutback. There was one in the middle and one in the top. So this thing had stepped up basically a house in 2 steps. And that was frozen in the mud, and I panned the camera down, and you could see all kind of deer tracks and animal tracks frozen in the mud right there with it. They were all over the place.
All right. So at that point, you're filming this, and you're following the tracks, kind of like Scooby-Doo style, sleuthing where the monster is headed to, and at some point you have a meeting of, if I remember correctly, you wander into something.
No, that was the week later.
Okay.
Because we didn't see anything for the rest of that day. The week later, we were going to go camping there because the campsite there, the hunters had used, and they had left like a cord of wood. And I was like, oh, dude, this is perfect. There was an outhouse maybe 100 yards away. So I went to the camping and army surplus stores and bought, all kinds of stuff. Glow sticks. I bought plaster for casting because I wanted to get some footprints from this time. I got I bought a new tent. I got a Coleman stove. I got everything because I had a 4-day weekend. So we went back and we drove up there, and it was just pouring rain. Another storm was coming in. It was kind of disappointing. We got there, all the tracks had been destroyed. And my brother was setting up camp, and I said, well, I'm going to go see if I can find anything. And I left the camcorder down at the camp with my brother at the car because I didn't want it to get destroyed in the pouring rain. And I started walking up the trail for about an hour, I don't know, and got maybe about a mile or so, half mile up the road. I went past where there had been some kind of logging, and I found a stick that I used as a walking stick because I didn't bring anything for protection with me, and it was just pouring rain down. And it was fairly decent forest. There was a lot of brush, some big trees, and then smaller trees and heavy brush underneath the big trees. But I got up to this one point, and in the middle of the trail, there was another footprint. And it was right smack in the middle of the trail, and it was fresh. It was filling up with water, and I was like, oh. I was thinking, First thing I looked at that, and I saw another footprint on a little cutback that was only about a foot high. And this wasn't the giant one. This was the small one that was only about 15-inch footprints. And I could see the footprints where they went off up the hill, and then I couldn't follow them anymore. I was only about maybe able to follow 4 or 5 footprints, and then I couldn't find crap. But these ones were really clear because they were in the mud. And while I was looking at them, I heard, it sounded like a lizard running through the leaves, but it could, my first thought was maybe a squirrel or something, or a bird, because it was too cold. It was getting ready to start sleeting, and it got down to like 19 degrees that night. It was starting to get really cold. But I was looking at the tracks, figuring, I want to cast one of these, but am I going to be able to do it before the rain destroys it? But before I did, I was like, well, the curiosity got the best of me, and I looked over to where I thought I heard the squirrel, or the lizard in my mind at the time. It was inside this, it was underneath a big tree, and there was a smaller tree and some brush, and it was really thick right there. And I'm like, wow. I was just looking back in there. I remember looking, and it was really dark, and I'm like, wow. Well, it's really dark in there, Just looking, and I couldn't see anything. And then I start looking up, and I start seeing this silhouette taking shape, as I'm looking up. And I look up, and there's a freaking gorilla sitting in front of me, dude. Just right there. I'm probably face to face. I'm face to face with it. And I'm looking at it right in the eyes. And it kind of looked angry. And I jumped back with the stick and, kept the stick pointing at it between me and it. And it kind of poofed or woofed at me. And I took off running. That was my encounter.
And how close do you estimate you were?
Like right in its face, Toby. I could have touched it.
There it is. Part 1, part 2 coming next week, and you'll be able to hear from the witness's wife as well. I hope we limited some of the background noise going on there. They run a busy household, indeed. And the phenomena that's going on around their house is pretty busy too. I'm not quite sure what's going on, and I've seen the videos. You be the judge. I'll slap those up when we get part 2 next week available. This is the way it's going to go. We're going to make this specifically a Patreon-driven show for the time being. At the latest, until spring 2022, we're just reorganizing shows at intermission. And as I said, probably keep it to 2 or 3 shows maximum for the Patreon members, and try to get those up between Sunday and Wednesday for you guys as well. Hope you understand. Again, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email. Wish you would, over at strangebrowradio@gmail.com. And to the new readers of the Al Moon Lab, thank you. Some people got a hold of me regarding the book here, never heard of me or the book, and have some really good questions about things going on in the QR codes. If you have a chance to take a look at the book, it's embedded with QR codes, and the best way to enjoy that is with earbuds in, because as you know, some of the audio there is pretty interesting. So that's it for me. Got a busy month coming up, Thanksgiving, and I don't know what your plans are. I'm going to try to head south towards the Al Moon Lab area and enjoy some Thanksgiving down there. And if I can, I'll bring back some video on that as well. Also, by the way, I should mention that Daryl Adams of the Al Moon Lab, who had moved out of state over to the East Coast, tried to live back in Oklahoma, has moved back to about 5 miles away from the Al Moon Lab, just closed on their house. So also there is an interview coming up between Daryl and I, and as well as Doug Hychek's show. You can check that out over, I think, at untoldradio.com. All right. I think that's it for me. Nothing pressing other than that. Part 2 coming next week. And again, you'll be able to hear more specifically from the lady of the house and her point of view. As always, thanks for being a patron, and I will see you in the trees.